Disclaimer: I have been possessed for 5 years, and I am close to losing my soul. I made this channel in hopes of passing the intelligence down that only the possessed come into contact with to help those who might end up in the same position save their souls. I have been part of an ongoing battle, and am the true second Messiah, with the demons trying to make me the next Antichrist. Possession is misunderstood in the modern world. Before the video begins, if you think you are possessed or genuinely are, I recommend you to start this series from the beginning and watch each video. If you are possessed, this should be a constant study. Good luck. If you are possessed, you don't want any demons, like me if I had lost my soul finding out where you lived. So, make a randomized YouTube account with a randomized name and username, and comment then if you want any help. I'm going to change this YouTube channel password, it's a random email, and I would look from time to time on an alternate account only. If you think that you should ignore this advice, just note that all it takes is something like this, and a few extra things to find out exactly where you live. So do not ignore it, please. Hi, welcome to episode 3, lesson 2 of Possession Help. More on tactics used by demons. If you have not seen the previous 2 episodes, watch it from the beginning, please. This is the second major and minor tactic. In my opinion, from the 6 years now I have been possessed, and I'm close to losing my soul, potentially. There is 2 major tactics. One is diverting your life path, and the other is things to do with love and gender. But there's a lot of minor tactics that are used surrounding them all that might differ for each and every person. But if you have not watched the other one, please do so. This one is about genders and love. So, the goal of the major tactic: to formulate a ritualized archetypal scenario with a demon in your head, to eventually allow them to penetrate the nervous system. And this tactic is what, for me, was used. How it worked for me. Belief God wanted me to have a relationship, aiding it to fix other problems I had in my life in a gaslighting manner. Belief ex-women had to be obtained by mannerisms of the heart and not empty things like your greatness. This is sadistic, but it's conjoining with major tactic 1, which is off-life path, to frame your male archetype as someone else. The ultimate goal is to frame your male archetype, or any archetype like mother, girlfriend, etc., as other things to lead to a penetrating nervous system event, such as self-cooking the demon into your nervous system by psychic content. Now, I had it like this, but you could have assumed in my position that it had to be something sexual or something violent. So I think it would work with violence also, because the way the symptoms are when you have the symptoms, you then now have a reason to work out. Working out is the opposite in nature to jacking off. So in the beginning, you did not have a reason to work out. And I was obviously being tricked into going running and things like this. But I was ultimately in a timeless reality and giving myself a reason to do it. And later down the line, when they are in your nervous system, you actually want to do it because it's the one thing that kind of relieves it and gives you a little bit of strength to overcome the symptoms. But the amount of exercise it takes is ridiculous. And you would have wanted to actually include all of the other things like psychological work also. It is... So I still do not know if you can save your soul as a guy who has a penetrated nervous system, but if I had that happen to me, I would have hung myself on day 1, knowing what I know now, and avoided the whole thing. But anyway, this symptom phase I have had has been 4 years of the 6. So 4 years and I'm still alive. And working out kind of just relieves the symptoms. And you can assume that anything sexual and violent makes it worse. If I got hit around the face right now, I'd get tortured by demons. For sure, more or less, I think. So it's a bit risky. And if I jack off right now, I would have increased the hag symptoms, the hag that penetrated your nervous system. So for people that don't have much self-control, it's quite difficult. I was raised in a society, obviously, just like everyone else, where everyone is tricked from birth into thinking that stuff is normal. And I had to quit any form of sexual activity that I had and grow to absolutely hate everything that is lustful. You have the demons raping you and things constantly, and it makes you really resent the human species and everyone for the sadistic things that they're doing to the human race. I mean, you kind of have proof that the human race, without your knowledge, is going to end up a trapped species because they all want overpopulation and things like this, and to get everyone trapped by matter. They do not care. They do not want to listen to the laws of nature. They do not want people to live the way that they are supposed to live according to spirit, and they give people like us no way out. And I say that if they cannot as a whole come up with the desire and will to want to follow a political system that leads everybody into the trees, like the extraterrestrial species of the universe, then this species is destined to be wiped out. For the most part. So, let me begin by explaining my story, okay? Properly. When I first got possessed, as you already know, I was being framed as someone else. And in a way, many people at the same time. I was being framed as one guy who was in the military and being tricked into training for the military. I thought I was being framed as a paedophile and things like this. And I believe also, I explained in the last video, there is a problem with a sense of psychological entanglement. The fact that people are framing you as a paedophile and you are being ritualized as a child, they're internally to your mind using this to also frame you as a child, and that is ritualizing your childhood purity. So, a lot of problems going on, and it's a giant mind fuck, but the ultimate goal was to get you to go off your life path. But you have a mother archetype, you have a sister archetype, and you have girlfriend archetypes, you have archetypes of girls you might have had relationships with before, and things like this. I am going to make a lot of psychological videos because I have learned a lot about the mind, and I believe when it's written in a format where you can easily decipher the main points that you should be aware of, it's going to help you. But it's so sort of like they do not have to talk about who you think they're talking about all of the time and things like this. So you could have a mother archetype surrounded by content that might relate to a mother, and it's building the archetype of the mother. So it doesn't have to be your mother and things like that, right? Okay. So what happened to me is, because I was arrested by the police, one day I was listening to a song, and it was after I'd had a lot of experiences with the Green Martians, okay, and it was Ghost Main to Whom It May Concern, okay, and it was talking about how nobody can get close to me and things like this, alright. And I had already a lot of dreams about subjects like people stalking me and things like this. Okay, and I thought that there was a set of people that might have been hacking my Wi-Fi router, which went under my control. It was under someone else's control. Hacking my Wi-Fi router and looking at what I was doing all of the time. Okay, because of many different things going on in my life, like me being framed. And I thought that everything that I did, I kept seeing archetypes pop up around me, which it was like it was projecting like the idea of women being sad and siding with you and feeling sorry for you and things like this. Okay, and I just sort of pinned a bunch of information from my dreams, from my mind, from my synchronicities together, that there was a woman stalking me. Okay, so out of sort of trying to, I was just, I can't remember what it was. It was a GTR music video. They were driving cars, and I can't remember what it was in the video that made the thing pop up in my mind, but I had a feeling they were looking at everything I was doing symbolically, because I was addicted to refreshing the YouTube page, as it acted like a database of astral information where I could sort of just experiment with my lucid mind. Because when you have unlocked an infinite soul, you gain power over matter and you have a lucid mind, right? So I was doing this, and I thought they were all obsessed and looking at it, and pretty much I was listening to that video, and then I closed my eyes and I seen a green Martian just staring at me. Okay. And I was like, what? Alright. And as time went on, everyone started acting like they were sort of speaking to these people in like symbolic ways and stuff, and it just didn't make much sense. And I was having all of these dreams, and it seemed like there was a woman who really was like kind of upset that I was actually immortal, and she could see it because she was watching me. Okay, and also really didn't want me to be framed as a paedophile, but she ended up being the one who did, in some way or another, frame me as a paedophile, right? Okay, and so you're dealing with all of these archetypes, and what causes it, okay, is a problem that I'm going to get into, because right now with my physical symptoms, it's hard to be allowed to contemplate on the subject because I'm trapped. It's sort of like you play along and then you get dreams and things of God. Okay, so I worshipped Jesus at the beginning. Jesus, whether you want to say he was a god or not, there is not a lot of proof that he was, because he didn't write anything, and John and the others did not write anything that came even remotely close to looking like Jesus was anything but mortal. So we have the Brahmas of India and things like this. But the Holy Spirit of Jesus Christ worked, and that's why I worshipped him. But there's a physics of mind and spirit, of course there is. Okay, so you're declaring him as God for thousands of years, and then there is sort of astral content and dimensions and things like this. I'm going to get into the problems of prayer and everything you could ever need to know in this entire series, and what's good about it and what isn't. But you're submitting yourself to that idea and principle, okay? And I had dreams where it looked like God wanted me to give up money, which was one of the major points. And I want to also talk just slightly in this video about a recent event that happened to me, okay? So, before I get on to the next chapter, let's quickly go into the recent event. I'm stuck living in my sister's spare room right now. It was treating me like the universe was nerfed for the longest time, and I was trying to solve it, as I said in the last video. Nerfed financially, based on the way that the ether worked and things like this. Well, I thought of a business plan that was guaranteed to work, and I'm not going to detail what the business plan was. Alright, and I started doing it, okay, and then I saw my friend appear in my room wearing a business suit, but my friend's poor, and these are the friends that were framed as having robbed me, okay, so my archetypes of wealth have been displaced, and then I almost got my lower back possessed, and had to quit the business plan. So, I mean, I'm not allowed to get a normal job, I'm not allowed to make money on the internet, and I just had to shut it down, and it would have made me a lot of money. Unfortunately, it was guaranteed to work as well, and I didn't need any startup capital, not really, and that's it, because it relied off sales calls. Anyway, I'm sort of sales calls and monthly subscriptions, so I would have scaled it really quickly. It sucks. So I am blocked from making any money, and this is because my archetypes were displaced, I guess, from what happened in the Major 1 tactic. Okay. Well, Major 2 tactic. It is sort of like this principle of that woman that felt sorry for you is speaking to everyone that you're friends with, and you're not allowed to say anything about it, and all types of things like this behind your back, and you're seeing it all in dreams. And you also have dreams that God wanted you to sort of, it seems that make it look in the end like Jesus or God was actually guilty, okay, of sort of the selfishness of wanting to sell your soul for themselves in a way, but they're not, and I know they're not, but we'll get on to all of that later, as that is something I need to make a whole nother video on. It's sort of like, sorry for all of these little interruptions, I'm just sort of, you know, my mind is, I lose a bit of mental acuity because of the demons to some degree, and then there's this. Where you just sort of like lose track of what you were talking about, yeah. I'm not going to edit these videos any more than this. Yes, so the obvious thing with, well, what's the weakness of positivity and what's the weakness of negativity? We could say this. The weakness of positivity, sometimes optimism, is delusional. The weakness of negativity is sometimes nihilism. Just makes your world worse when you could have had optimism and made it better, right? That's two things right there. So the optimist in this situation would have likely thought so basic. If I was to go and ask everyone into the spiritual, who is spiritual right now, what they think I should do, they would tell me really basic things, as they were like me in the beginning, okay, in terms of what they'd have thought, right? So you read the Bible and the Quran and the Torah, and you think that God is an all-pervading force that's powerful enough to save your soul. You feel the Holy Spirit. When I first felt the Holy Spirit, I was completely overwhelmed with love, okay? And you think so submissive to this holy force that you want it to save your soul and you think it knows more than you, but you're neglecting the way the universe really works. You're becoming a god yourself, and you're praying to someone who was in deified form. Allah was in deified form as the Anunnaki once. Jesus was just a human being. Okay. And you know they have their own archetypal principles, and those archetypal principles are playing with you. They have a lot of force in the collective with their Holy Spirit that can help you. I need to make another video on this subject completely. Then there's a trickster archetype that can pretend to be them. There's the demons that can pretend to be them. There's the trickster but the demons seem to not always be capable of pretending to be them in dreams and things like this. It seems like they are really good if they are talking whilst you're awake and stuff like this. There's a trickster archetype though that is responsible for a lot of the chaos in your mind, and you might find that it makes jokes and stuff like this because of the demons, and this is responsible for a hell of a lot of the problems that you face when you're possessed. It sort of makes it seem like the gods are out to get you and things like this. And a lot of it, well, the demons do this when you're awake, but I always thought Allah weren't the one that was out to get me. I never was deceived with this. I never was deceived like that with Christ. I was deceived like that with the Blue Devas, but the Blue Devas are so nice, it's ridiculous. And I ultimately just sort of was in a whole world of chaos. Yes, okay, so I don't want to cut these videos out when I'm sort of thinking. I don't know if there's some thing that happens in my mind sometimes. It feels like when I wake up, I have started remembering my dream and then they just take it away from me in my head and stuff. I don't know. Alright. But then there is just the part where you are a little bit... I do not have like forgetting issues or anything from this, but that's just something very small that I've noticed that happens rarely, and I feel it was because there was something archetypally gaining advantage in my brain. But there was a... sorry, I'm not going to bother editing. There is sometimes like certain principles that maybe just seem to like fuzzy my mind, and then there is like when I'm switching, because I've lost mental acuity at least by the fact that my brain feels like it's fried, so like you're just switching into different ideas and you forget what you were going to talk about, and I'm there trying to remember it. So I won't say this again, and I will just say, if I go quiet, just wait, please. Right. Okay. The optimism point, that's what I was trying to remember. Okay. You ask the spiritual people what they think they should do, and they will look at you and analyze you. You did cybercrime when you were younger. You had a huge ambition. You've got the Buddhists that give away money or don't need money and they renounce the material world, but you're there wanting to become a billionaire and things like this. Okay. Well, it's obvious what they'd say to you. Alright? The end. And this is exactly the mentality I had in the beginning. So I thought that God was giving me good feedback every time I decided to do something like give up money in the spirit. But there is spiritual physics and psychological physics. They themselves didn't care about money. Do you think that matters? It's a spiritually good thing to not care about money. Do you think that matters? Of course it does. Okay. So you're being tricked because the demon's trickster archetype is tricking the Holy Spirit of God. Okay. This happens in the ritual all the time, and you will notice it in the middle. And you will think that God isn't being tricked, but it's not actually there with you consciously, constantly. There's an automatic spirit there, an automatic psychological content. Okay? If you really try hard enough and start thinking about going and building yourself a log cabin, you will get the same feedback. You're not allowed to do this. That's because they did it in the medieval era. They did it in the ancient Israelite era. Okay, because you've got spirit whilst awake if you're far enough in this endeavour. Okay, and you will have known that that is true. Okay, so all of these basic spiritual principles are used against you so easily because the demons are smart. Now, Aleister Crowley, in my opinion, I don't know everything about him, okay, was possessed for maybe 7 years, maybe less, okay, and was actually someone who went to India to try and help himself and became a Buddhist. But internally to his mind, the demons would have been displacing his archetypes, okay, that he cared about, and that's because he was renouncing the material world. So, renouncing the material world is something that's positive for the spirit, yes, but you have a demon inside of you, and their goal is to entrap the soul, and it uses all the soulful content, all the selfful content, all the soulful content, like archetypes, and the demons want to displace it, and make it so you have to be them to do certain activities. Things like this, you understand? So that's the problem with being a little bit too basic with your spirituality when you're possessed, because you are just playing into the hands of the demons all of the time. And it's the same every single time. So you can look at religion, and I know I'm still going to make a separate video on this, but it's important. You can look at religion and see that you're being way too submissive for your own good, and it's just allowing them to destroy your mind and nothing else. You're not a kid, okay? You're going to regret it later. Anyway, belief, God wanted me to have a relationship then, okay? Why? Because it devalued all of the things I did wrong, okay? I was a guy who, when I got possessed, thought that there was something wrong with me, okay? I wasn't a Satanist or anything like this, actually. Different to most people who, if there is ever anyone lucky enough to watch this if they're possessed, to be honest. Different to most people that probably were Satanists. I weren't. And it's interesting because the one person I met who was possessed on Reddit got possessed at 19 because of his friend who was into that stuff, and his friend didn't. So this is really unfair, okay? And I got possessed because I was enlightened. I didn't even dare read Crowley when I got possessed, by the way. I read Crowley once, and I got tagged by a demon in the astral. I knew it because when you close your mind's eye and you see a demon for a split second, you know you got astrally tagged. Anyway, that same demon ended up being one of the ones that possessed me years after I saw that, so yeah. Anyway, I'm not putting religion down, and this is my fear about making this video series, that people who are possessed are going to be tricked by the demons based off what I'm saying, into thinking that I don't have their true survival in my heart. I have lived 6 years possessed. I have almost lost my soul, but I'm telling the truth. And you could believe it or not believe it, but at least listen to everything else I have to say. And if you're going to be religious, okay, keep your dominance internally to yourself, psychologically. If you're giving your will away, and this is the problem with spirit, you don't know what it's doing on your behalf. You are letting them displace your archetype, okay, and things like this. You are becoming a god and have to act like it. And this is a problem for everyone on earth, because there is no gods here telling you what to do. Okay, right. Now, I do not know if everyone becomes a god when they get possessed until you lose your soul, okay? But I want to tell you what happened to me briefly. Astral Tag, that demon, I had another one by a Blue Deva pyramid. It was a blue pyramid, and it had a sound along with it in my sixth sense, okay? And that was before, also. I got the Hindu Moksha in a dream by a Blue Deva also. They have red pupils. Okay, and he came into my channel vision and told me he's absolute once. Alright? I used to call my lucidity absolute mind, and it seemed it was the two sort of principle, like the demons were trying to create him to look a certain way and things like this, but he's the good guy with me right now. Okay, so you could just argue that you unlock the all-pervading infinite spirit, the astral, and you build it. And you can go one way or the other way. Usually you're not tagged by a demon, so don't have to worry about it. Okay, and that's all. And that's my philosophy of immortality at the minute. And I know that you don't have to know as much as me to get possessed, so I don't know what it's like if you are, because I'm sure they will still be capable of, well, I know for a fact that if you're going to become the demon, that you're going to be a immortal, but you would just be a soulless one, right? And the one that isn't soulless is going to be a supreme being, and that's how it works. Anyway, I will make another separate video on that subject also. And so pretty much I was trying to get a relationship. I believed the woman was someone I had, and this is a major principle of this that you need to heed. Even though you shouldn't be going for a woman anyway, do not go for one, but obviously some people watching this might have done it already, okay? When you are framed as trying to get her, she will not be there around you, and the demons will make things up. With me, they made up that I had to keep my mouth shut even to protect people's lives from being harmed, as there was a realistic reason why their lives could have been harmed in my life. And I had to think that I was forced to get the woman, or get a woman, okay. See, I was scared of the original woman they said was stalking me, and didn't trust that it weren't going to make me lose my soul. And I was acting like this in the beginning, but God sort of, in my mind, had a separate woman. But it didn't matter because it's in your head, do you understand? So I didn't actually think it was that woman. But I did think that there was other people involved that I was trying to save and things. Okay? Which is awkward enough. But I was apparently trying to get one by being not arousing the sort of gold digger traits and things like this. So they framed the first woman, the one that I was scared of, as being a bit of a gold digger who was obsessed with the fact that I was immortal and would have wanted me to be famous. And then the second one, they and was a bit motherly, by the way. The first one apparently was like the mother, and then the second one was the girl who's your age. And someone that you had to get in a way that was um, very of the heart. So joining the military and going to the gym and not being a rich man. Now, I wouldn't have dated someone who's a gold digger anyway, but it doesn't matter, as you cannot be a perfectionist if you're rich to some degree too. Anyway, there is sort of then they would sort of bombard my mind with comments like it's about my self-esteem, and I'd get angry. I don't need to go to the gym for self-esteem when I've got all this success. It's not what would make my self-esteem better. They would frame me as being socially inept and stuff like this because I had no reason to talk to anyone because I was possessed, and bombard me with like posh look down upon you stuff. Okay, and this is a really interesting story, and none of it is distinctive enough for me to say it's really the way it is, as you're just dealing with mind content, right? But they'd be using a first name all of the time of a crush I had as a child, and then they would sort of play in another name of a girlfriend I had as a child and stuff like this in the torment here and there, trying to like entangle the girl I was going for with this, even though I was going for someone my age, apparently. And then I would have realised when I went, this is a single point of the story, okay, a main point of the story, I'd been tormented enough that I could have been tricked into going to a place to magically meet them, okay, as it wouldn't have made sense that I knew where they were. And so I went there, and I saw a girl, it was a pub, saw a girl sort of with black hair, and she came to my table and gave me my drink and then walked away. And she looked similar to the woman, but weren't the same woman, in my opinion, okay, that the one that I'd seen in dreams. But we didn't talk or anything, and I want to say, before this happened, I was at work in a warehouse, and it was like they were talking to me all the time with the demons, pretending to be other people, okay? And they made a Blue Deva woman say, "Come on my face," and showing that, right? And offer me a blowjob or something. I can't remember how it worked. Well, I went there that day. Obviously, I'm not trying to meet a Blue Deva woman, and I didn't connect it in my mind. But the guy who I was being framed as, alright, who was in the military, I looked at the group chat and he got a blowjob the same day and was bragging about it, that I went there, and I thought I got cooked. Okay, but you're being framed as him, and it caused a self-cook scenario. Alright, and I was really, really angry because I just lost millions of dollars and caused all like my situation to get way worse, all so I could get that guy a blowjob. All of that, like, if you understood the archetypal ritual, you'd see how it worked. But really, your archetype was getting it and projecting it. Do you understand? Okay. Now, I don't want to let everyone down here, okay? But when the demon got into my dream in the beginning, it said, "I will help you get a house, and if you let me in," and I said, because I weren't aware, yes, as long as I don't lose my soul, but I didn't mean it, okay, and that's it. And I woke up and I was like, what the fuck did I just do? Okay, because I was trapped in real life, alright, because I just got arrested and stuff like this, that they went for me, alright, and I basically became him, sort of, in an astral scenario where it doesn't make sense aligning with my life, and got him a blowjob, and also got him the house. Okay, there. But it did. All of the people who apparently robbed me never, ever, 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 ever got rich in the real world. So far, okay, they haven't been rich. It's been 6 years, and he got to that house in a way where he'd have got it anyway. So it looks like you did it, but he'd have done it anyway. and it just looks like you're forced down, and that there might be a misunderstanding if there was any realistic scenario going on between the two in the ether, but I doubt it. Okay, the end. I was just sort of locked down for no reason. Okay, and yeah, and it was his archetype that was obtaining the house, right? So you're going running and stuff like this, and they're acting like they're selling your soul, and it's his archetype that's getting the house. Do you understand? So he gets the house. That's what happened. Alright? And he got the blowjob. Okay? And there's so much more interesting stuff, but when my identity is finally public, I don't really want to throw some people under the bin, so I'm just going to leave it out. But it's really, really an interesting story. What happened and things like this. It was an interesting story, but yes, I ultimately had that happen to me, and the demons at the time were saying things like, "It's not your DNA, it's not your DNA," and stuff like that. Okay, oh, you finally got your DNA back. You finally got your DNA back. All right, and stuff like that. All right, which is dumb. And I saw next time I saw some sexual content, I had a penetration of the sort of demon under my skin, pretending to be a woman. Okay, and you can assume it felt like shape shifting. Okay, and that's it, pretending to be a woman, and felt the like highest sense of like demonic lust, okay, that you could have assumed. And and after that happened, the next time I went outside, or one of them, I was walking, and then I just sort of like had a fade, like it felt like a spirit fade. And I will explain everything that happened after, but from then on I've had symptoms. So, when my life path was going off, as you see here in the third section, the ultimate goal is to frame your male archetype. Well, that's what happened with me, or any archetype like mother, girlfriend, etc. As things like extorting you and stuff like this, okay? And it was leading to a penetration of your nervous system event, such as self-cooking, the demon into your nervous system. But I know that it could also work if it was violence. It must be the case that it can work with violence. It has to be. They could have used a violent situation in an archetypal scenario and done it with violence too. There's no way that it's only sexual things. So I would say violence and sex are the two main concepts they're likely to use when they're doing it, but with archetypal things. And what you pay attention to and what you do in real life is everything to you to avoid this problem. And I mean everything to you, okay? What would happen after the penetration? My story. A large development of symptoms over the course of years. I will explain the fade. I was panicking at the time, okay, and I was like praying to God, please, 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 please. And I smelt blood and tasted blood, and I was panicking and walking home, okay. The symptoms develop, the fade things happen here and there. You feel it, and you feel things on your heart. You feel what feels like decay of mind force. Sometimes you feel like you get tapped on the head and lose consciousness for half a second, and your knees bend. Like you black out for half a second and your knees bend. Bones breaking under the skin came later. I didn't feel pain, but I felt the bones snap. Black eyes, like you're being punched in the eye, and things like this sometimes. And that felt like it was a bit sore, which is odd. Sexual symptoms, every type of sexual symptom you can think of, to be honest with you. but you do not, and even teeth being broken out violently and weird stuff. You do not want it to happen. I know some of the people watching this might be easily aroused. I mean, I promise you don't want to get tortured, but this has been happening to me for so long. I don't want to sound sadistic, but it's the truth that I just want to warn people on how much you really do not want this. It's being raped every single day, every time you lay down. Sometimes you'll feel like there's a corpse there and stuff. Okay. And you just, it makes you hate everything sexual, honestly. You'll start hating it so much that you just couldn't even comprehended it, right? So I lasted at least 2 years with them raping me every day, not doing anything sexual, and it was sort of, it really just ruined my view of everything sexual completely. It's bane. Yeah. I went to work in the beginning and I had, if you've seen the Chinese drawings of meridian points and things like this, it's like my meridian points were being used by those needles, acupuncture, right? And they'd be talking about acupuncture in the torment. They're faking acupuncture on me, okay, and then I'm getting a little bit of a slight fade, which is, in my opinion, the demon or the hag gaining power in the ethereal conduit, okay. And this ethereal conduit is the spirit, and ultimately, you're now in a sort of weird internal war, and this has gone on for the next 4 years. The major key destruction happened when I went into the bathroom and I was almost paralyzed. The most overwhelming force of pain that felt like it crushed my back, and I had to walk to my bedroom hardly. Okay, it didn't fully get me, it didn't paralyze me, it didn't make me fall, but it felt like they tried, and lay down for 3 days. Okay, I couldn't turn onto my side and things like this. This made me paranoid about going anywhere. Okay, about going anywhere to get a haircut, anything. Okay, and that was about 3 to 4 years ago, and I have not had that event since, which is odd because I really am in a worse position, and that's it. I was forced to get business loans to live on and things like this. My credit has now been ruined, and I ended up having to move into my father's house, who's a drug addict, and that's not any place for a guy who's possessed. And then he started robbing money from me, and I moved in with my sister. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm physically incapable of doing anything. I'm not allowed to make money on the internet without being tortured because my soul's blocked and things like this. So that's what happened after the penetration. And the goal is to get enough force and power internally to fully torture you. So they would also, they give you every logical reason to hate everything, and it makes you really angry. It's like, I don't want to say it's the truth, but I know that I am God, and God has been ruined, and things like this. I know that I'm not allowed to do X and Y, and you can keep going on and on and on and on and on, and you get angry all of the time, and you're so alone constantly that you forget you're alone because they're talking in your mind constantly, pretending to be others. You have friends, like I'm friends with devas to some degree, but these devas, it's awkward to explain how that works. Okay, to be honest with you. Alright, but it's really nasty what you go through, and you get so angry sometimes you feel like they're trying to change your internal physiognomy to a more demonic one. Okay, so like a scrunched up face. Yeah, and what they're doing, I was told by some aliens, the way to save your soul is through the electricity of archetypes. Okay, and I didn't know what it meant at the beginning. And well, every time I was trying to do visualizations, because I have this scrunched up face problem right now, I would feel like I'm hurting the scrunched up face and things like this. I will obviously make a whole separate video on exactly what I would do if I went to day one, if I did not kill myself and went to day one, exactly what I would do to get out of the situation to the T. And everyone should listen to it, but you obviously need to learn all of this too and become aware of how to think about what the demons are going to do before they do them. For example, major tactic 1 is getting your life off path. What if you know not to go off path? They're going to frame your future. Okay, that's a way of knowing what they would do. And you have to be aware of everything that they're doing. Okay, and help yourself. So, I think that if you really study all of these videos, you cannot lose your soul. If you do it from the beginning, but obviously no one has done it yet, so we do not know as a human race if that is true. But I will make sure to include everything, and I want to say about the part where you're not really allowed to think how those things happened. As before I was mentioning those archetypes showing up around me, like women caring and things, were it my real mother archetype projecting? Were it real mother girlfriend archetypes projecting? The black-haired woman from the beginning, I've been shown in many instance visions with me that I must have been in my 40s or something. I'm 26, okay, with a little daughter, alright, and assumedly alive, and things like this. And then I've had her pop up and things, and it's acting like it's the wife I'd have had if I never got possessed. Sometimes you don't know if it's real, okay? And sometimes it feels like it's pretending to share everything that you didn't get. So it's not what you did, it's what you didn't, including your wife, okay? And things like this. And then sometimes it feels like that's a lie and you don't know, and it's just hard to sort of wrap your head around. There's a symptom that you get which is penetration of the heart, which is the most sorrowful symptom you can have. When you have a form that you have some form of communication going on within your brain, let's say an alien from another planet, or this woman, if they become aware of you in the heart, there is an interaction, and it's the most intense feeling of love and sorrow at the same time that you could have ever felt. And that's it. And their form might show up next to you. And this makes you go through all types of sadistic things near the end of your life. And it really feels like the death of the universe itself. And they just mess around with your heart with those things. So you could feel like it's your daughter, I guess. Okay, when I had that interaction with her, for example, and I felt really bad and sort of I made an account on Twitter, and it was basically asking people to tell who they think the Antichrist is, to do a lie detector test every X years if he has children, on 2 questions to make sure that he's not a paedophile. Because I couldn't handle the thought of losing my soul, becoming a demon, and having children. So, but the problem with it is, what is the problem with this? Is many people will see that, and because of their weak nature, where they don't really care if you're guilty or innocent. They will frame me, and that will look like they are the reason I lost my soul back in time, because the demons play with potentials, right? So, as I was, and this is the great mindfuck of it, as I was running in the beginning, I was trying to get people to not think I was the Antichrist. And you see how it just all, yeah. But there's no way I'd ever be scared of them doing this, and I certainly would never get extorted. But I weren't really being extorted. I was being manipulated into losing what is the universe you'd have built yourself. That's what. And it looks like everyone who didn't obey that Twitter in the way I said would have been guilty as fuck. And that's it. But I don't regret doing it, as I will be famous one day, and I'm sure the connection between this channel and that will be public. I can find any phone number I want to, so I could have just called Alex Jones next week, or some random celebrity next week who was willing to put my lie detector test public if I had it done, and I'd be straight away famous. So it's definitely going to happen. I just can't do it right now because I'm possessed. It would make me lose my soul for sure, and that's all. So I've done all of this to help people first, and that's all. So, how to avoid? Be aware every acting voice and every dream is not relating to real events mostly, but the actable fake universe which can project lucidly what looks like real events playing along. Every gender and character matters, memories from childhood, like old love, old crushes, current crushes, etc. Do not go for a girlfriend or wife, boyfriend or husband, and drop the subject until you're not possessed. This is essentially the whore of Babylon that drinks the blood of saints, a corpse if you get close enough. That is the hag demon thing. When you see the demons, it might not look like a corpse, okay? But they're the shadows of the astral, okay? If you see them in a more materialized form, look a bit like a corpse, okay? And it's like you are possessed, and you were sort of, when you get to the penetrated symptom thing, there's a high-pitched scream of a corpse where it's trying to fully paralyze you and grind you to pieces, okay, there. And this is the hag, and you do not know if all of those projections were from any of your true traits, from what could have been, because it's a timeless centerpiece of the now, or the hag. And that's annoying. But for the people who do not have symptoms, you're allowed to really contemplate this stuff. You're in a really, really good position if you do not have symptoms, so it just makes everything so awkward when you have symptoms. There is PTSD-like symptoms later down the line that I have. I've only just got them in the last 6 months. It took 5.5 years, okay, where there's like a instance of like almost panic and things like this. It's hard to explain. And I think it's because myself knows I'm going to get tortured, okay? And yeah, so if I was to have told you what to do, it would take an entire new video. So that is why I put this part. There's a full video on truth analyzed methodology from an expert further down the series, as it takes knowledge and insight of me to have the best chance at survival. Which is true. But you would have known the visualization ideas are things just to simply solve all of the genders and things like this. For example, you can cut it short and just say, if you're in the beginning phase, okay, people could have said that that is a scripted story and just binned it. the original people who are being framed as someone else could have said that's a scripted story to you and then like binned it, right? And things like this. And then you could have said what they really think to sort of like overlap it there. But if you think that visualization is enough, I warn you, you need to watch that entire series. Just so you know, I have spent 7 to 10 hours a day doing rituals, background visualizations constantly, and 4 workouts a day in recent times when I was trying, until I started getting biochemical symptoms. Okay. And early on, I never did anything even close to that. Alright. But you need to watch and learn after I tell you everything that happened, the major tactics, the minor tactics, things like this, exactly what tactics you would use other than knowing what to avoid to help yourself. Because if you did exactly what I tell you to do, if you can save your soul and you have just been possessed, you will not lose. If it is possible to save your soul without medical intervention, you will not lose. Or physical suicide, you will not lose. And that is true, and you do not want to get tortured. And it will save you time. If you think you're losing time, it will not be a waste. It will save you time. I have lost 6 years of my life. 6 years down the drain, almost my entire 20s, to nothing. And that's it. Because I'm probably going to lose my soul anyway, but if I'd have known this from the beginning, by now I'd probably be getting rid of it. And that's all. So, make sure that you study every single video, and that is all. Thank you.